Well, first, thanks for joining us today. I know this is conferences are a lot of energy, take a lot of energy out of you. I'm barely holding it together. I know you, Tomer, you're probably looking a little rough in the eyes there. Me too, man. But so today, what we want to talk about though is, if you've noticed, this regenerative finance meme is kind of coming to life. It's no longer much of a meme in the Web3 space. There's active investments happening. There's a lot of actual regeneration happening. But today we want to talk to you about value. So what is value at ReFi? Mostly because, well, if you look at value outside this building in the petrodollar fossil fuel economy, it's kind of inextricably tied with just a pretty simple external feedback indicator, right? Profit, right? And profit's not necessarily bad. It's just that a lot of things are entangled with profit, right? And so today we want to talk with some folks here who have been working on various regenerative systems and really just ask them, if we're going to design regenerative systems, what are our conceptions of value? How do they change, right? How do they complexify? And I hope that by talking to these folks here and understanding the systems they've designed and are continuing to design, we can understand a bit more about what value means for us and how it's more than just token go up, right? So we'll see about that. So first, I'm just going to introduce you all real quick because these things always go over. So my apologies. I'm going to let you chill at the end though, so don't worry. But to my left here is Tomer Baryak. Did I say that right? Excellent. GP at Flori Ventures. They're actively investing in a ton of fantastic regenerative projects. Speaking of which, to his left, one of their investments, Ethic Hub. There's some coffee in the back. You should definitely try it. These folks are one of my favorite projects. They have coffee cooperatives in Chiapas, Mexico, who they brought them on chain with wallets. They provide an amazing DeFi under-collateralized loan platform for these folks to access banking, right? To be able to actually deliver their commodities to market and then get those products to market for people like us in the global north. It's fantastic. And then last but not least, Sarah Johnstone from Regen Network, formerly Regen Network, excuse me. She's now a special advisor to Regen, and she's soon going to be the incoming CEO of New Mundo. I hope that's not, hope that wasn't news to you, David. Cool, so with that in mind then, I'm going to start with a pretty abstract question and then just hand it over to you, Tomer, which is, this is something I think you think about a lot as a tokenomics expert and an active investor, which is, what is value?
The first night I met my wife, I asked her, like, well, what is money for you, right? And then she thought I'm insane. That didn't end up well with the state. So it's great for a public question, but not for a date. That's my first comment. But value is basically a social agreement. It's the fact that we are willing to accept that X can be transacted between people in order to be given for another. If I am willing to give my time to you in return for your cup, then this is value, right? The way that value is controlled today, mobilized by countries, is basically by the taxes system. The taxes system tells you that it doesn't matter how do you transfer value, you have to pay your taxes in the fiat currency in which country they're in. So even if I give you my time and you give me your cup, we still have to pay our taxes in fiat. A little bit think about value.
Nice, nice. So time. I think you're going to have a bit to say about time. Definitely. Here you go. Jorge, we'd love to hear. What is value for you folks?
I would say that it's not only something that people value, because, for example, clean air is a form of value, and nobody is willing to pay for clean air, unfortunately. So I think value, best way of thinking is giving examples, because we are not used to have this discussion, so we are not, normally people confuse value with money or even price, and I think value is a boat, value is a light in a social network, value is clean air, clean water, value is an educated population for a country that is able to adapt in changing world, etc.
Hello. Thank you all for being here. So I think value is really whatever we want to define it as, and I think part of what I'm super excited about with the refi space is we have the opportunity to program our values into impact systems. So we have inherited an accounting system that doesn't take into effect externalities, like our clean air, our water, the commons, and I think that needs to change. As humans, could be running out of time, potentially. We are in this pivotal moment in history with planetary crisis, really. We're seeing natural disasters everywhere, and I think refi gives us the ability to program our values into DeFi, which is something we're going to talk a little bit more about. So, yeah.
I think that's a great spot to dovetail maybe back to you, Jorge, around just if you're going to design a system that's going to account for some of these externalities. I feel like EthicHub might have a pretty good grasp of that, right? Like, just to give you all a little bit of background, you go out and get a loan today. If you're in the US, you go out and try to go to SBA, and you have, very little money in the bank. They're not going to give you shit, right? And what are you going to do if you're in the Global South? You don't have access to banking, right? So, maybe you can talk to us a bit about how EthicHub is addressing that.
So, we are targeting one of the biggest issues with the traditional financial system, that is that it left excluded almost a quarter of the world population. Most of them are smallholder farmers in developing economies. So that's why we are leveraging on crypto, this new tool we have to capitalize on new ways of value to deliver solutions for what it is needed. In our case, our way of seeing DeFi in a new way is normally you think on doing credit scoring, you need data for that, or you need some asset to use for collateral. But our farmers don't have either. That's why they are excluded from the system. So what we had to invent is some form of crowd collateral, which means you buy our token, the ethics, stake on their behalf, so they have collateral, so other people more risk averse is willing to lend. And if everything works properly, we are building a network, and that network has a value, and you are the one who are profiting from that value, because you give that investment in the beginning.
Awesome. So Tomer, I know you're the tokenomics guy, right? And so we've heard a little bit about how the current value system, our system of value, neglects externalities, treats things like clean air, clean water as externalities. And we talk a little bit about getting into regenerating systems themselves with the undercollateralized loan platform you have. You've seen a lot of projects come your way, right? If we were to think about how would you bake refi principles into the tools we have, right? Maybe you can tell us a bit about that.
So I think we need to relate that question to actually the problem that they are solving. Then we can think about it from the refi perspective. Problems are never standalone problems. We look at let's talk about the people you work with. There are people who aren't taking loans. They're taking loans at prices of 20% a month. Prices that are black market in our language, right? And we think about this as a standalone problem. But another problem that exists that we don't relate to is how much interest are we getting for the money that sits in our bank, which is basically nothing. We think of it as two separated problems, but it's not two separated problems. It's actually the same problem with just two sides of the same coin. It's a fact that money doesn't flow in the right way, not being valued in the way it needs to be. In the same way, we need to be looking at the refi movement in that case. One of the main problems of the refi movement, of regenerative networks, is the lack of ability to count the value of a common resource. And because I live next to a forest, the only way to know the value of that forest would be how much do I get if I cut those trees. But there is the same as this problem that I have, that this is the only resource I have to make money by cutting this tree if I need to feed my kids, there's also the global problem that we have, which is the fact that, well, as you know, humanity, we need those trees. So when designing those systems, we always need to find both sides of the problem to make sure we answer the incentives of those two sides. Same as we answered the zero interest rate and the high interest rate, we need to be answering the person on the ground who needs to be consuming that, or extracting for that land, to be rewarded for not doing that, the same as allowing us to keep those forests.
Nice. I mean, you guys keep doing my work for me here, because we have a person over here at the end who's with Regen Network. That's kind of what they're doing. So with maybe I'll tee it up for you this way, but we have ecological state protocols, ecosystem services. So if you think about what Tomer just said about the forest behind this house, right? There's someone showing up there saying, how do I value this thing? Well, we can cut down the trees, we can sell that, we can build a house on the land, we can do a number of other things, but that's all kind of subtractive, right? Like you're taking something away, you're putting your price on it, it's going somewhere else, right? But there are other ways of perceiving the resources on the land, making ecosystem services, like this weird concept from economics, a little more legible. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So I'll start out by just talking about how Regen Network was born. So the founders of Regen Network were previously working in the regenerative ag space. They're former farmers and permaculturists, so they were working with land stewards, they are land stewards, and in the food supply chain systems. And one of the things that they noticed is they were working with big companies like Mega Foods and other big food brands, but one of the things they realized is that two different companies, could be working with supply chains, and one of them could claim to be regenerative or organic, and they could both be claiming that, but it was hard to actually see who was doing that. And whoever told the better story and had the better narrative and the better marketing was actually the one that was winning among the consumers, which is really problematic, right? So our founders got into the blockchain space because they were very frustrated and they wanted to see accountability coming into the systems, and they wanted to see things verified on the blockchain. So it's been an interesting journey for Regen Network, and I'll say us because I still feel part of the Regen Network family and vision and mission. We started off with a pretty broad focus, and I think if there's one piece of wisdom I could give to all of you, it's find your focus. We tried to play kind of all the roles so that we could better understand all the stakeholders involved. So we piloted a grasslands methodology, and that was like a year's worth of work. I mean, it was super complex to pilot a methodology, but our whole thesis, and there's a particular focus on carbon at the moment, but that's just part of the story. Our whole thesis has been carbon is a way to get there, and we need other methodologies. We cannot just focus on carbon. We need to be thinking about biodiversity, restoring our oceans, wetlands restoration. There are so many more pieces to the puzzle than just carbon. So, and really what we need to do with carbon markets, the way we're seeing it now is it's archaic. There's no way to verify, there's double accounting. And those systems need to be disrupted, and we need to see things live on chain. And while I'm super excited about all this, I'm also seeing the space of refi right now is a little bit chaotic. There's a refi frenzy, and there's a lot of noise, and it's very exciting. And I'm so excited you all are here, and I just want to emphasize again that carbon is one pathway in the refi movement. And I think, one of the things I've been seeing most recently, I see a lot of pitch decks, and I'm seeing a lot of folks entering the ecosystem that really don't know their stuff. And I'm not a carbon markets expert, and I would say that what our ecosystem really needs is to lean on people with domain expertise. So in the refi space, we should be working with scientists, we should be partnering with academic institutions. We need to make this movement scale, and there's a lot of noise. I'd say most of us don't really know what we're doing, and we're all just trying to figure it out, which is great. And I'm pretty curious to see, who's going to be around in 5 years. So, kind of going all over the place here. Sorry, I'm riffing. I can take a pause there.
If I can add something, I think it's very important that we don't focus only in environmental things. No? For sure, that's very important. We can become extinct very soon if we don't act. But there is other problems. The United Nations define that problems with the SDGs, and at the end, I think all of these problems has to be attended. And I think it's very useful if we use that terminology. If we say, okay, we have all these problems, we have to solve all of these. For me, ReFi is about working on solutions on these problems, leveraging on crypto. And I think that's something that we are missing a bit in ReFi, because it's very focused on carbon, as you said, and if something a bit other environmental issues, but there is many other things that need to be solved.
So I think we're kind of rounding the end here, but what I would like to do is, what I really liked about Celo Connect as well with all the folks that are out here is you got to see a lot of folks doing real things with ReFi, right? It's not just the ReFi regeneration Twitter memes, it's actually people starting companies, going on the ground, working with people on the ground, scientists, farmers, all varieties of stakeholder, and then actually coming and showing you the results and what they're actually going to do next, which is really exciting. So I think from those, some learnings are emerging, and a few months ago in East Denver, there was another regenerative finance panel where people were talking about what are the principles of ReFi, right? If we're going to build this new movement, are there any principles that we can put out there for folks who are going to join it? So really, I'm not going to steal anyone's thunder here. I'd love to hear from you all. Like, what are some emerging principles you might be seeing out there that founders, teams, everyone looking at the space saying, we got to help? Where should we start? What are the principles?
Bigger is not always better. Less can be more. Carbon is not the only way. Regeneration involves thinking from a whole systems perspective. And that starts with actually thinking about our inner landscape. We cannot regenerate the planet until we've done our own work and our own healing. So we must regenerate from a place, we must feel like we're regenerated. We must be thriving as humans. And for those of you that are entrepreneurs and managing or running teams, you can't lead a team successfully if you're not in a good relationship with yourself. So we must regenerate ourselves. We must try for imbuing regenerative culture into the teams and projects that we're creating. And we must think about ecology. We must think about nature. We must learn from nature. Biomimicry is, super important. So I would also just invite everyone to slow down. It's noisy. Everything's moving really fast, but try and be mindful and bring intention into whatever you're creating. I know sometimes, and I feel it, there's so much noise in the space, and there's so much FOMO and urgency, but I think we have, this is not a sprint, it's a marathon, and I think we're all going to have a better chance at thriving, and I want to see you all here still in 5 years. I want to see your projects succeed if we slow down and really design from a regenerative internal place.
I would say that some principles that we should put within the movement is inclusivity. So we include everyone in the discussions and not only us. And adaptability. So the movement could evolve with the time because the world changes, technology changes, and we have to be able to change ourselves to leverage on these changes. And equality, and this is very arguable, especially for these anarchists, capitalists, anarchists, etc. But I think one of the biggest issues is that at the end 1% of the world have more than 60% of their wealth, and that has no sense if on the other hand there is so many needs in the world. And so we should embed this principle in our solutions also. And one very important, which is mission alignment in the long term. That's why we call ourselves Ethic Hub, because in the future the team will change because we all dead at some time or whatever. No? But if you call yourself Ethic Hub, at the end people have to, that is working there, is contributing there, has to think on what is ethical and what is not, and what is a hub and what is not.
For me, one of the things that I see the most today that's happening in the refi space is people trying to solve problems of a very poorly designed system, which is the carbon system. It's the same as if we imagine Satoshi sitting at home being like, oh, how do I solve the problem of the US dollars? No, he didn't solve the problems of the US dollars. He didn't take the dollar, call it USDC, and put it on chain and was happy about it. He invented Bitcoin, which was supposed to be killing the existing financial system. And I would recommend, instead of trying to focus on how do you solve one bandage that you can put on the existing carbon system, focus on the problem. What is the problem that you are trying to solve? The problem that carbon market was trying to solve is offsetting for big companies. That was the need. What are you trying to solve when you want to design a system? Focus on the real problem, not the secondary problem that was created by a poorly designed system. So that would be my...
Love it, especially where we ended on. That's fantastic. So I think we do have a little bit of time for questions, and so I'm going to move to that in just a second. I'd love you all to take a minute to chill. That's why we're here. So, Tomer, please.
Well, if you see, we don't have much to chill. But ethical are awesome. Doing a great job right over there.
No, I think the most important thing that we have to understand is that we have like the nuclear bomb. We have an amazing tool now to change the world for better. And that's the important thing, that we change the world for better and not use it just for making rich in 1 day or whatever with a pump and dump scheme. And I think that's the most important thing of all, increasing consciousness to leverage on this for the better.
Okay, so I'm going to do some shilling. So I just want to say the Celo event the last couple days was like the best event I've been to in blockchain, and I hope to see more like conscious events like that. I was so impressed with every detail that went into that space, and I think it's important. So on that note, I'm going to show my own project, Numundo, which is a network of regenerative living impact centers around the world. So eco-villages, permaculture farms, impact centers, we have over 1,000 places in our network, and I think there's an opportunity for Web3. I think you folks all should come visit our centers, and we do design multi-day experiences for centers. So if you and your team want a few day experience where you're disconnecting from technology a bit, doing yoga, getting into your bodies, regenerating yourselves, regenerating your souls, and your purpose with your mission, and getting together as humans, relating as humans outside of just work. We'd love to help you with that. So come talk to me. And also, one more thing, so I just want to shill the 8 forms of capital. If you're not familiar with that, you should look into it. I think we should be thinking about all forms of capital as we design our companies and our systems. And also, if you haven't been green-pilled, you should get green-pilled. Go read Kevin Milwaukee's book, How Crypto Can Regenerate the Planet. I would still say we are not there yet. There is a lot of talking, and we have a lot of work to do, and it's still, there's a lot of potential, but in 5 years, I hope we're talking about the work that we have done and the things that we have accomplished, because we still have a long way to go.
Nice. So we do have time for 1 or 2 questions. If anyone has a question, go ahead. Gustavo.
So I'm quite astonished about these new memes that appears each 2 weeks. Like right now we have refi, right? a few months ago it was only DeFi and before, and I believe that we are in the meme industry somehow. Bitcoin as don't trust verified thing and stuff, and it's all about the meme. Which is cool, but on the other side of the equation, I think it's adding complexity when we are when we are going to the outside world and explain things. Oh no, yeah, come to this refi dApp that will DAO-ish things for you and stuff like that, right? So I'm wondering, of course, if you talk about regenerative finance, okay, maybe some people can have some idea about that it could be, but others won't. So what is your take for each one of you in just in one sentence or something about what exactly is refi, what is the difference with DeFi and so on, and assure, because from one side I see that DeFi is just people playing with numbers that life is so ledger, just a mental construct that we assign that as money, right? So what is refi from that perspective?
So I think DeFi is still going to be the portal in which people discover refi. I mean, you can only do so much yield farming and liquidity pools before you're like, what is the impact I'm making? But for me, refi is really using DeFi tools to figure out how to have impact, whether it's social, economic, political, climate. It's using the DeFi tools in a regenerative way, and I think we're still going to get the humans coming through DeFi, and we have to green pill them and get the degens to become regens.
Totally agree, and I would add that at the end, it's about, there is, in DeFi, it's just about profit, ROIs, APYs, and this kind of things, no? So it's monetary value, economical balance sheet, but in refi we have environmental capital, we have social capital that we want to take into account with our solutions. We want to promote APYs also there, not only in the economical side.
The thing that unique about the DeFi movement, and that's how we would explain it to other people, is that we are used to look at industries from what is the market cap of this industry and what is the accessible market of that industry, etc., etc. Which, when you go to common resources, you have a problem, because what's the value of air? What's the value of clean water? That's why we gave it to centralized entities. Now we're in the existing world to be controlling it, because the free market doesn't know how to value those assets. So part of the job of the DeFi movement is to give monetary value to common resources.
And I just want to push back on that a little bit and say, are we going to tokenize everything? Do we literally need to tokenize like all of nature? And what would Charles Eisenstein say about that?
Charles Eisenstein actually does talk about it.
I know you. Everyone should go read that.
All right, so first, thanks for the question, Gustavo. Thanks for your participation, everybody. This was I like that we were able to bring it down to its core concepts, to real-life living things that we're doing. It's awesome. And tune in after this for the fight between Tomer and Sarah over Charles Eisenstein's legacy. Just kidding. Thanks a lot, guys.